Hello and welcome to the second presentation for the introductory week. I'm Dr. Sayanato. These first couple presentations are really meant to just sort of introduce you to some of our ideas that we'll be using throughout the course, and also just to sort of just put you in a particular sort of mindset that will be helpful as we go through not just this course but the other courses as well. This really isn't as much a presentation as it is a series of exercises. We're going to begin though with a brief discussion about the optional reading for the week. First, all these little exercises we're about to do are grounded in concepts that are outlined in the very brief article that you've been provided. Of course, it's optional. You don't have to read it, but it's only 3 pages. I'm just saying. The name of the article is called The Right to an Opinion. Now, as we should all know, we do not have a right to an opinion. There's no such right in the Constitution. You have a First Amendment right which guarantees free speech, so you can say whatever nonsense you want. I can say whatever nonsense I want. However, it doesn't give me the right for that nonsense to be true, to be valid, to be reliable. And the problem that many people get themselves into is that they believe that they actually have a right to an opinion and that is just as valid as any other opinion. And that's not true. We can express ourselves, but unless we have some sort of what we'll learn to understand is empirical evidence beneath it, it's just things being said. And unfortunately, too frequently, we are surrounded in a world where people say things because they're allowed to say things, they're in a position to say things, but that doesn't make what they say necessarily any better than some individual on the street who knows nothing about nothing. But such is the world we live in. Now, our first exercise, actually all these exercises, are kind of like that scene in The Karate Kid where Mr. Miyagi is showing Daniel-san how to wax a car. Of course, what we later find out is really going on is that he's not teaching him how to wax a car. He's actually teaching him the most fundamental core maneuvers or moves or what have you, positionings for his body that will eventually turn into a fighting style. So this is sort of an intellectual fighting style. So let's go through these and let's see how it goes. In front of you, you have an image, and I'd like to ask you a question and tell me what you think. Well, actually, you can't really tell me anything because this is pre-recorded, but do your best. Where's the front? Think about it for a moment. Now, most frequently when I do this exercise with students, they say, oh, there's the front. And I say, okay, that could be the front. That's true. However, this can also be the front here, can't it? Sure it can. It could also be the front. But they both can't be the front because we know that there is only one front. Now, could that be the front? Yes, but that can't be the front while those other things are the front as well because, well, look at the orientation. You have right now you have the men standing on what appears to be the roof, and the tiles appear underneath to be the tiles for the underside of the roof. But the other men at the bottom are actually standing on that same plane of tiles, but they're on the floor, apparently on a level below, or at least so it possibly appears. So what does this tell us? Well, maybe instead of trying to decide where the front is, maybe we should start looking at what's true and what's false about this image. Let's suppose we decided that the man in the upper left is true. He really is there. He is pulling something up. Let's suppose we further concluded that this gentleman is true. He's really there and he's tying something, the poles or whatever those things are, to the rope. Okay, no problem. Now, let's suppose those two are true. Let's suppose we further explored this image and we decided, those other parts of the image on the other side, they're false. Okay, could possibly be true. Now, if that stuff is true on the left, then the stuff in the middle must be false. Why? Well, look at the gentleman at the top. He's standing on the roof. The underside of the roof is right beneath him, and the tiles for that are the bottom of the roof. Yet the gentleman below is on the same plane. So we must conclude, therefore, that the stuff in between is false, but the guy at the top and the bottom can be true. However, both the guy at the top and the guy at the bottom in the other side of the image cannot be both true at the same time, no matter what. And why that is, well, look at the ladder. In one part of it, it's facing one way. And if you look at the top, the gentleman at the top of the ladder, he's facing another direction. The ladder cannot physically change or change shape and face two different directions at the same time. It's not possible. Now, what if we were to conclude that all those things at the top are true? Then we'd have to conclude all the things at the bottom are false, because they can't all be true at the top and the stuff at the bottom be true as well. It can't happen. They are conflicting with each other. They are what we are going to discover is a concept called confounding each other. Now, if this is sending you in circles and making you think about nasty thoughts like this clown, I understand. Confounds are a pain, because confounds make us think some things are true when they might be false, and some things are false when they might be true. But this is the reality of doing any kind of empirical or scientific exercise, and that is identifying with as much precision as possible what's true and what's false, what you accept and what you don't accept, what are the assumptions that you're willing to take on. This will become incredibly important as we go through the remainder of this course. What time of day is it? Now, before we go further, it is not Wasilla, Alaska. This is a chateau in, let's say, somewhere in Louisiana. I don't know. Lake Charles or something. I don't know. Okay, now, what time of day is it? Is it noon or is it midnight? Think about it for a moment. Look, you have evidence that suggests it is both noon and midnight, but as we very well know, it cannot be both noon and midnight. So what's the answer? The answer is it doesn't matter, because what matters here is that we define what's true and what's false. If we accept it as noon, then we accept the sky as being true and most of the elements as depicted in this image as being a false representation of reality. Conversely, if we decide that it is midnight, then the opposite is true, that the sky is false, and I think it'd be reasonable to conclude that the rest of the image is true in that regard. What's important, again, is that we decide as the researcher or as the person doing the analysis what's true and what's false. It's kind of like an investigation of a crime where you have to determine who's giving you false information, most likely everybody, and decide of that what is relevant, what's not relevant, and what to do about it. Okay, let's look at another kind of problem. Before us we have a pipe? Oh, possibly. Of course, underneath it says in French, this is not a pipe. Well, maybe you don't speak French, or at least read French. Okay, fair enough. Well, what is it then? Well, there's a photograph of a pipe, but what we were looking at, in fact, was pigment that was painted onto a canvas, rendered in such a way as to look like a pipe, but it is in fact not a pipe. It's a recreation of a painting, and that painting is made up of paint and pigment, like I said, shaped to make you think it's a pipe, but it's really not. Actually, underneath it, this image is a bunch of ones and zeros. Code that, because what's happened is that that photograph of that pipe was digitized, and I put that digitized image in this presentation for you to take a look at. Tricky, aren't I? Anyway, what's the point? What do you think the point of this is? Well, the point of it is about precision in this case. It's about being able to say with precision, what is it that we're looking at, or what is it that we're assessing? Is this a pipe? Absolutely not. It's ones and zeros. And you might say, oh man, you're being a pain. You're being overly detailed. You're being overly specific. No, I'm actually being precise, and that is the point of this exercise, is to get you to get your mind thinking about things with a little more precision than we normally do in our normal operations. Okay. Let's try another one. What do you see? How many black dots? You should see a lot. Wait, no, they're white. No, wait, no, they're black. Wow. Well, in fact, there are no black dots to count. Watch what happens when we eliminate most of this image. See how the black dots disappear and they're just replaced by white? Guess what? They were there all along. Let's go back to the last image. Black dots. No black dots. What's the point of this? Well, sometimes when we take a step back, the image looks one way, and when we get closer and closer to the details, we find something completely different is in fact there. This is another kind of confound, but this is all about keeping perspective. Maybe you've heard of the phrase, about losing the forest for the trees. while clearly the person on the right is hugging her tree, which is very nice, but she's losing perspective of the forest all around her. Conversely, if you look at just the forest all around you, you might lose some of the nuance and the details of the trees. And part of empiricism is about keeping perspective and balance between your details on the micro level to the bigger picture details on the macro level. I don't know if this is going to work or not. I mean, typically I do this on a projector screen in a room, and within 20 seconds or so, people are like, yeah, the gray haze is shrinking. Well, okay. Well, this is sort of the opposite story of the last one, where the last one we looked at the big picture and we got a different image of reality than what was really there when we looked at the details. This one is, if you get so fixated on the details, you might lose the nuance and the details in the story, the narrative that's all around it, which is this is a dot surrounded by a gray haze. But if you look at that too long, the gray haze disappears. All right, one more. Now, look at the chart in front of you and say the color but not the word. So we have green, red, orange. Oh, I caught it myself. All right, what's going on here? Well, as it turns out, over time, as we learn to read, we've learned to read these collections of shapes of letters, yellow, blue, orange, and we don't actually read them. Our mind is so hardwired to appreciate the shape of the word yellow that we equate those shapes with this concept that we understand as what yellow is, and we don't even read the letters, we just read that overall shape. So it is a disconnect for us to focus on the color of the letter forms, because that's not how we've been hardwired. That's just the way it is. So you actually have to really concentrate to say green, red, blue, yellow. And I have to say it very slowly because I'll catch myself if I don't, because that's just the way our brains are hardwired. Why am I bringing this up? Well, because frequently, for a number of reasons, the things that we're looking at or assessing when we're doing it empirically, the way our brains are hardwired, whether it be through socialization and our experience, or whether it be through something as elementary as, presumably elementary I should say, as reading, or reading the shapes or what have you, can affect how we interpret the things that are immediately in front of us. The end.